Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I'm Hamza Idris. Following the conclusion of the November 11 off-cycle elections in Imo, Kogi and Bayelsa states, the Center for Democracy and Development has highlighted incumbency factor, identity politics, vote trading and other issues as some of the significant challenges faced during the election. The credibility of the election has become the subject of public scrutiny, with observers giving mixed views. Noel Sampson was at the briefing and now reports.
Election observers have begun reviewing the quality and credibility of the exercise as INEC concludes the conduct of the off-season elections. For the Center for Democracy and Development, there is need to be an overhaul of the responsibility in election management that will improve the process.
The statement is set in the broader context of the economic, political, and socio-cultural environment, which not only frames but continues to pose challenges for the country's competitive party and electoral politics. Major features of this environment are the following: incumbency, identity, institutions, inducements, information disorder. These features have in recent years progressively constituted more disturbingly than before and fetters on the country's electoral democracy, despite limited success in sanitizing the country's electoral process.
While the center identified the prevailing challenge that characterized Nigerian elections, they also recommended possible solutions to remedy them.
So, what is important is that we look at those elements of the political environment which continue to pose serious challenges to the conduct of democracy in this country. The political parties themselves are not mirror of what democracy should be. And they are the ones who, of course, by constitution, by any arrangement, will form governments. So I think the point is that for Nigerians to start making it clear to the political parties that they are the problem. And but we'll keep to encourage them by diverting attention from what they are not doing right to looking at problems or failures in other institutions of society. And they are doing all their best to delegitimize the electoral process in this country.
The off-cycle elections have left much to be desired as complaints and controversies through the conduct of the exercise. Noel Sampson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
The off-cycle elections in the three states continue to generate reactions as public debate remains polarized over the credibility of the exercise. As the dust settles following the declaration of winners by INEC, election observers have begun rating the quality of the elections and the performance of stakeholders involved in the electoral process. Dokasi Yakubu reports.
The battle for the governorship seat is over in what many describe as a largely peaceful but somewhat flawed exercise. As the controversy around the election continues to divide opinions, Yaga Africa, which is a non-profit organization promoting participatory democracy, human rights and civic participation, youth initiative for advocacy, growth and advancement, believes there have been substantial improvements in the just concluded off-cycle governorship elections.
In Imo State, the beavers worked throughout the day in 94% of polling units. However, it malfunctioned, and where cases where it malfunctioned and it was fixed was in about 3% of polling units. In Kogi, the beavers worked throughout the day in 94% of polling units. It malfunctioned and it was fixed in 5% of polling units. And cases where it malfunctioned and it wasn't fixed was recorded in 1% of polling units.
While monitoring the exercise, Yaga Africa deployed the process and results verification for transparency methodology to observe Imo and Kogi state elections. Despite the reported challenges in the conduct of the exercise, the organization commended INEC's response to the reports of pre-filled result sheets in Kogi while urging the commission to ensure election fraud and malpractices are prosecuted.
The commission, and in this case INEC's prompt response, to the report of cases of pre-filled result sheets, that's from EC8As, in Kogi was equally impressive. We hope that the Commission will fulfill its commitment to ensuring the culprits face the full wrath of the law. We hope that the reports, of several electoral offenses, compromise and unprofessional conduct on the part of police officers are duly investigated and that the culprits are properly punished.
The need for a critical review of the electoral process has been highlighted to ensure sustainability and development of Nigeria's election system. Dorcas Yakubu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
To continue the conversation, I have in the studio Clement Oloyede. He is the Group Politics Editor at Daily Trust. And joining virtually is Faith Nwadishi. She is the Executive Director at Center for Transparency Advocacy. The CTA had set up its situation room in Owerri, Imo State, as it monitored the election in Kogi and Bayelsa states, respectively. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
And Faith, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Yes, I think I should start with you, Faith, since you join us virtually. You have heard what Center for Democracy and Development said. You also heard what Yaga Africa said. What do you have to say from your end at CTA?
Okay, so thank you very much. The last election that held on Saturday was the first off-season election just after the general election. We had also issued a preliminary statement as soon as the elections ended. And we noted that in the 3 states, the issue of logistics was quite impressive. There was improvement in the logistics. So to say that in most of the places where we observed elections and polls opened on time, in some cases they even started election at 8 a.m. because they were already there rather than the 8:30 a.m. they were supposed to start. And we had, because the INEC officials arrived on time, because of the collaboration between those that had the responsibility of bringing them to the site. And also in most cases, we saw that even when INEC officials were there and security agents were there, voters were not coming out. But the downside of the election for us was the voter apathy and the fact that continuously we have seen that in this election, the political class seems not to be interested in reforms in our elections. So you have an umpire that is going ahead, bringing on one reform or the other just before election. Because take for instance, before this election, the umpire released the data of the registered party agents per political party per state. But when we got to the field, what we noticed was that some of the party agents who were there were wearing different party tags, but were working for one particular political party. So you get to the field and the INEC official is giving instruction or sensitizing people on how what the process will be like. You expect that a party agent that is ready for the job that is supposed to do would ask the right questions, how many ballot paper, the result sheets, and all of that. You just see them, they're just quiet because they don't even know what they're doing. So the political parties are not investing on training their party agents. They're investing on ensuring that votes are bought. So in this election, we have seen that even the cost for vote buying has gone up across the state. In Bayelsa, they had the highest where they were paying about 30,000 naira. In Imo, it was between 1,000 to 5,000. The same thing with Kogi. So that's one. And on the other side also, we now see the power of incumbency, like was mentioned by CDD. Now the governors wrote to hotels to say, oh, these people, we want to use all of your hotels. In Kogi, for instance, the hotel that we paid for, they said they didn't give us access. And I speak to you, they have not even refunded our money. In Imo State, we had to practically fight to be able to get our rooms. So this is a new trend that is coming in, and then all of these things also now leads to voter apathy because we unnecessarily militarize the entire process, a process that is supposed to be a civil activity. You bring the police, you bring the army, they are kitted as if they are going to war. So you feel that by bringing out these people, you want people to come out to vote. But at the long run, what happens is people come out of their homes and they see this kind of kitted police people, army on the way. They go back to their homes, So these are the things that we continuously see with our elections, and we hope that the political class will get up and begin to do the right thing, because at the end of the day, like I always say, they are the ones who benefit from the process. So observers, we go there, we spend money, we spend time. I had a horrible day coming back yesterday to Port Harcourt. One of my observers, his phone was taken away and the pictures, even his personal pictures, were deleted. The security people were just sitting down there watching him. They didn't do anything about it until he walked up to them. And all these kind of things are things that people see and they don't want to come out to vote. So it's important we call out the political class and tell them that they should take up that responsibility. One, voter education should be part of their responsibility. Mobilization of voters should be part of their responsibility, so that they can also contribute their quota to the reforms we want to see within the electoral circle.
All right, thank you. First, we'll come back to you in due course. Clement, you can see the anger in her face. And maybe before you comment on some of the things she mentioned, how was the coverage? Were journalists threatened? I know your reporters all over, you send them to Kogi with additional reinforcement of sort. And I remember at the time some were saying that we should even get life jackets for them, and helmets and all that. How was the coverage?
Well, for the part of journalists on the field, our reporters that we sent to the 3 states, I'm glad to say that we do not have any incidents. I mean, by incident, I mean any negative reports from any of them. None of them complain about being harassed, either by the police or political talks. To a very large extent, I felt the feeling was that a lot of people know that attentions are on them. Police, to a very large extent, the security people behaved professionally around journalists. I can't say the same for everyone. So generally, for journalists, for our reporters, both for the TV and for the newspaper, they had a very smooth coverage. Even for places like Bayelsa that extended up to today, it was a smooth coverage. There was no time that any of our reporters came back to us to tell us that either NEC officials or security operatives did this or did the other to him on the process of coverage. Okay, then what about this issue of, almost all the 3 institutions we quoted here, CTA, Center for Transparency, Advocacy, BIAGA, and then Center for Democracy and Development. They all fingered the political class. Yes. Are you on the same page as a professional reporter? Are you on the same page that the actors did not behave very well? Well, I think we just take a step further and say that it's not just the political class, it's about the mentality that we have as a country. The political class are part of the society, are part of us. The police are part of us. So it's just the idea that we have sort of over the years have about what election should be, what campaigning should be. Let's not forget something. The sittard woman that just spoke, yes, she mentioned one thing that all of us have come to acknowledge. There was massive voter apathy. A politician that wants to rig election, the first thing he or she wants is for there to be voter apathy. It becomes easier. But imagine where we have 70 to 80% turn up at the election place. It becomes difficult for the politician to do whatever he has in mind to do. But when people are already disenchanted with the process, they have little confidence that their votes will even count in the first place. They have little confidence that security people will protect them. So generally, I just have to take it a step further and say that it's not just the political class, it's the system entirely. Because it's not just it's not the political class that are in charge of the security apparatus. It's not the political class that is in charge of INEC. This is supposed to be a system, separate system that works independently of each other. Politicians being politicians will naturally want to influence influence the system to suit their goal. So in the long run, it's not just the political class. The political class definitely have a major role to play, a blame to share in this. But if the systems that we have are working, if the people don't go out to sell their vote. If the people insist that, no, this election is ours, INEC has printed this ballot paper, we will not allow anybody to snatch it, we will not allow it to be taken to another place to be thumb-printed. People stand their ground, things will normally change. Don't forget, in the general elections, one of the things that we had with citizen participation, while the elections were going on, you noticed that a lot of citizens took their phones, mobile phone, to take pictures, to take videos of incidents that are happening. We do not have that much in this off-season election. So, while it might appear as if I'm blaming the citizens, it's not. It still boils down to the low confidence. People have become disenchanted, especially coming after the 2023 election. The expectations have become very low.
All right. Faith, can you come in here? And specifically in Kogi State, many people who went to bed early yesterday, they went to bed with the notion that there will be a run in some areas in Kogi. Don't you think INEC has trapped itself when it later announced result? And how do you think the electoral empire will exonerate itself from the blame earlier in the day that some result sheets have been thumb-printed?
Okay, yeah, yesterday INEC actually came out with a statement suspending election in 9 out of 10 wards in the Gorimagongo local government area. And they've also come up with a new date for elections to be conducted in that particular local government area. Now, you understand that in declaring results, what usually happens is you're looking at the margin, the number of registered voters within a particular area compared to the total number of votes or margin of win. If the margin of win is significant, I mean the number of people is significant enough to cause an upturn of that result, then you are able to declare that that's the process. You're able to declare it inconclusive. But since INEC has also announced that there's going to be a rerun election in those local government areas on the 18th of this month, then we need to really follow through that process. Because when the news came out that they came with pre-filled result sheets in those local government areas, INEC came out to say, okay, they were going to investigate, and after investigation, made a response that they were suspending the election in those areas to be conducted another day.
Yeah. And now, are you worried with one of the issues raised by CDD, that is identity politics? It's like it's getting deeply entrenched across the divide. What is your take, and how can we solve this problem?
Sorry, can you ask that question again? I didn't get that.
Yes, can you hear me, Faith?
Yeah, I didn't hear the question.
Yes, I asked of your take on identity politics because it was said by CDD that it was visible in Kogi, in Imo, in Bayelsa, identity politics. How can the political class come out of this deceptive posture?
Okay, it's a very simple thing. It's actually for the political class to understand that they have a responsibility to Nigerians and even up to themselves to follow these laid down rules and regulations and ensure that things are done properly in the way that they are supposed to do it. So you have a political class that is prominent in a place, and you have the power of incumbency and all of that, ensuring that things go on as usual. So it is also about having systems in place and structures in place that can actually checkmate all of this. For instance, we have campaigned for the establishment of the Electoral Offences Commission. If you have an Electoral Offences Commission that is working and it's accessible, you will have some of these issues quickly treated, rather than leaving the responsibility for INEC and for the security agents who are working on election day. And you understand also the fact that some of these security agents that are taken to different places on election day usually go back and they abandon these cases. So one of the big solutions that that comes in very handy is one, doing a value reorientation, ensuring that the political class know that they have a responsibility to protect the process, and also the establishment or the passage of the law for the establishment of the Electoral Offences Commission.
All right, thank you. Clement, in Kogi, I want to finish Kogi before we move to other states. It's like the outcome of the results differs from the three major senatorial districts. Can you shed light on that? Because I saw you doing a lot of analysis earlier in the day.
Yes, before I come to the analysis on the figures, I think I should just clarify this from the state, from what Madam Esther just said.
Faith, yeah.
And Madam Faith, sorry. INEC statements had a caveat yesterday. I think a lot of people missed that. I think a lot of us, even in the media, we missed that. We thought it meant that definitely there's going to be an election, a fresh election in November 18. But there was a caveat. The caveat was that this decision to hold fresh election on November 18 is dependent on the outcome of the collation as announced by the returning officer. It's inside the statement there. INEC said what they meant by that is that if the returning officer, after its calculation, determines that the margin of lead cannot be affected by the place, the 9 ward, the district collected there is about 16,000. PVC collected there is about 16,000. So for the fact that the returning officer decided, okay, the margin of lead, which is about 100,000 or 200,000, is more than whatever will come out of that place,
affected areas.
Definitely with that is the reason given by INEC for the announcement of the result. And after that has been done, I don't really think even if there's going to be election on November 18, it's just going to be academic, just to fulfill what we call all righteousness. Then coming back to your question about the figures, that's one of the interesting things about this election in Kogi. From the beginning of the election, we knew that the election, the politics were divided along ethnic lines.
Yes, which was the question she answered, yes. And I am sure that you will also shed more light, that identity politics. Yes.
The identity politics was very strong in Kogi. And by that, the Kogi Central, where the current governor comes from, is the same place where the APC candidate comes from.
Yes.
And from what we saw there, it is the only zone that has massive turnout of voters. In fact, two local governments of, I think,
Adavi
and Okene had produced almost 90 or 95% turnover.
I mean, you're talking about PVC. turnout of voters.
Turnout of voters with their PVC. In Okene, for instance, we had about 140,000 PVC collected. And the results showed that about 131,000 people came out to vote. I don't think that was recorded any other place, as in that percentage was recorded in any other place across the state.
So, and APC recorded from the turnout, which party actually
from the result, APC won these two local governments. Just give me a minute, let me give you the figures.
Yes, let's go ahead.
APC got, in Okene, for instance,
yes,
there were 151,000 registered voters.
Okay.
Of course, the accredited voters for the election was 141,000. In fact,
they were accredited?
Yes, that were accredited. Voters, PVC collected in Okene was about that same 141,000.
Almost every other person that collected his vote.
According to with the result, with the election that happened in Okene and maybe Adavi, it shows that everyone that collected their PVCs turned out for the election. And for Okene, APC had 138,000 votes.
Almost 98%.
Almost 98%, leaving the remaining 2% for others to take. The same thing played out in Adavi, where 103,000 voters were accredited out of about 114,000 that were registered voters there. And the same place, APC had 101,000. Put these two local governments alone together, that is more than half or about half of the total vote APC got in the election. And the same thing played out in the other three local governments in Kogi Central.
Then let's go to Kogi West, where PDP candidate Melai came from.
Kogi West politics was more divided because they had two strong candidates. Melaye for PDP, and Leke Abejide
yes,
of the ADC. And I think the ADC candidate was the only one that was able to win one of the local governments. But what we still saw in Kogi West was that voters turnout was less than 50% in most of the local government. They had, I think, 7 local government. Voters turnout was less than 50%. It was worse in Kogi East, where the candidate of SDP
who was seen as the dark horse of sorts.
Exactly. He was seen as, because of the population of Kogi East, everyone thought this might be a runover for him if he's able to mobilize his people, but the turnout from that place was very low.
Was there violence there?
There were cases of, in Dekina and Igba, for instance, there was cases of violence. A ballot box snatcher was shot dead. It was in that same Dekina that earlier in the week preceding the election, there were shootings that were traced to the police at the house of the Director General of the Campaign Council of the SDP. Mm-hmm. So the place was fraught with violence. And though it was not as extreme as we had it in 2019, but you could not still separate.
If you have to put it on a scale, the violence this time around vis-a-vis the one in 2019. What?
Some will even say if you compare this year's election with 2019 election, there was no violence this year election.
Okay, I think I should go to Faith to have her take. Yeah. Yes, Faith, both of you, the civil society organizations, spoke on voter apathy across. That the result in, yes, Okene, for instance, is showing something different, over 98% turnout of voters. How do we reconcile this?
Okay, so if you look at the 3 states, the percentage voter apathy differ. For Kogi, you had a slightly higher voter turnout compared to Imo State and Bayelsa State. But I think Imo State actually had the worst voter turnout. For the reports that we got from Kogi, there were people had come out, I guess, because of the gladiators or the candidates that they had for the different from the different political parties. You could also see that run up to the election, Kogi had more campaigns than compared to like in Imo. In Imo, you were only just hearing the incumbent governor and all those other ones. That you didn't have the robustness of the campaign that you had in Kogi, or like you have in Imo State. And then for Bayelsa, you know that prior to the election, the APC candidate, the court had declared that he was not a candidate, but very close to the election, that was when the court lifted and said he was a candidate for the APC. And then the time to campaign also was quite shortened by all of that. So it shows that for any election where you have robust campaign, you have had dialogues with people, it also is one way to also bring people about to join, come out for these elections. But another thing again is the kind of violence that you see prior to election also determines people's participation. And before the election, we had gone around the 3 states and we went holding stakeholder meetings with different stakeholders. The issue of security was one of the priority concerns of all the stakeholders, even including the security agents. Security from security agents, security by citizens. Citizens were concerned that the election may not be peaceful and all of that. So some of these things, the kind of narrative that you have going into an election determines whether people will come out or not. And I guess it was one of the groups of the guy that with you that I said earlier that the strategy of the political class to instill fear into people not to come out on election day. It's also part of their strategy to be able to win. So you are going out, especially for Imo, where I went to observe, you are just driving around and looking at where people are voting. You see people, rather than coming out to vote, they are playing football. And we engage a few young persons and we ask them, why wouldn't you want to come out? Well, they have the opinion that, even if they vote, their vote will not count. They had threatened them the night before and the week before that if they know they are not coming out to vote for a particular candidate, they rather not come out to vote. And I asked them. Don't you think that you're coming out not to vote also means you have actually voted for that person that you don't want to vote for? Because if you come out, it will help to ensure that that person is not getting the number of votes. Because when you have 1,000 persons who are supposed to determine the person who wins an election, and only 20 people come out, those 20 people will determine the winner of the election. So that's what we're seeing. And then also people don't really understand that governorship elections and local government elections are more important elections than even the presidential elections, because this is where you have closeness to the people. You can actually demand for accountability. Well, we know that in Nigeria, there's no local government election that happens. It's more or less like an appointment. So whether irrespective of the party that is in power, so you have that. And so people, we need to do a new orientation. We need to empower the National Orientation Agency. Political parties need to make budget available for citizens' voter education, for them to really understand the importance of these different levels of election. Imagine somebody who came out to vote during a presidential election and says, "Oh, I'm not going to vote during a governorship election because I don't know what concerns me." The likelihood of the 4 years of the president being in power and you not having an interaction is there, but the likelihood of you within those 4 years to have an interaction with your governor, because definitely he will come around to the ward to campaign. There will be projects that are state specific to you that may benefit you much more than even federal projects. And because people don't understand that this is really where the local grassroots governance should be, this is where we should come out and determine that. And I keep saying that if there's voter turnout, say about 50 or 30% for presidential, there should be 60% turnout for governorship, and there should be 80% turnout for local government. But unfortunately, the elections don't happen at the local government level, and the only opportunity we have for citizens, they don't understand that this is where they have to determine and use their power, the power of the PVC to vote that. So it's about always blaming the other people and not looking at ourselves. For instance, you're asking citizens, new polling units have been created, you're supposed to transfer your polling units there. I saw in Owerri, for instance, some polling units that had only 4 persons. INEC officials were there, security agents were there, even party agents. In a place where you have 4 registered voters, you have like 5 or 6 party agents. There was another place where there was just one registered voter, and that registered voter happened to be a party agent for a particular political party. After he voted, he was happy that he has delivered his word, his polling units. So you can imagine that mentality of persons not understanding that they have to transfer their PVCs to somewhere that is closest to them, where it's more convenient for them to vote, and you allow the political parties take over that. And then maybe just rounding this up to say that even the so-called party agents that we have, the parties don't even train them. Imagine that when you had one registered voter, party agents were still thinking that more people will come to vote in a place where you have just one registered voter. They were asking the presiding officer, "Oh, okay, now that this person has voted, more people should come." Actually, a bus actually came to that place with people wanting to come to, but the person said, "There's just one voter on this beavers, and no other person can vote there." Imagine that party agents don't even know that this is what they're supposed to do. So, and it translates to the people who are supposed to come out to vote, the fear of saying, if I come out, if I say this. But interestingly, I saw a woman that is 80 years old who has been voting, and she says if there's a vote to be done tomorrow, she will still come out to vote. She will be 81 years next year, and she has been voting, and she's looking forward to that time when she will come to vote. And then because she has voted, she's able to say, "This person, you have not done well. I will not vote for you the next time because I don't have road, I don't have this, I don't have that." But our young people are not looking at it. They're not looking at it like that. They're all just saying, "Oh, let them do whatever they want to do, and let us do whatever we want to do." And the cycle continues every 4 years. It continues like that, and we just keep complaining.
All right, thank you, Faith. Please don't go away because we will go on a break and we will return soon. Viewers, stay tuned with us.
It's good to see you.
Welcome back. If you are just joining, you are watching Daily Politics on Trust TV. Do well to follow the conversation across our social platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and watch us live on YouTube. We have virtually Faith Ndawishi. She is the Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy. And in the studio, we have Clement Oloyede. He's the Group Politics Editor at Daily Trust. Yes, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much.
Yes, now the elections have come and gone. You have covered, I'm asking this question because of your antecedents, your previous experience. You covered the courts very well and you understand the technicalities also. Is this the end of it all, or you see some of these, candidates heading to court?
I just believe this is the first phase of the election process, just as we do in all Nigeria election. Even the one that are not as contentious as this, it always ends up in court. Not to now talk of everything we saw play out on Saturday. Don't mind the statement that was credited to the SDP candidate in Kogi, Ajaka.
Yes, said, I read that he said he will not waste his time.
Of course, he may say that, but don't forget, the ticket belongs to the party. In Kano, for instance, in the Kano governorship election at President Tribunal, the candidate did not even challenge the case. It's the party that went to court and secured this victory that is already before the appeal court now. So, for Kogi, don't lose your sleep on the fact that there is going to be a lot of cases. I expect the PDP and its candidate to file cases, perhaps ATC also. At least those are the top contenders. In Bayelsa already, at least 7 candidates, including that of Labour Party, including that of SDP, NRM, and some others, have already said, meet us in court, INEC. This is not the end. And in Imo, today, there was a joint press conference between Ethan Achono of Labour Party and Sam Anyanwu of PDP, where they both gave an ultimatum, 7-day ultimatum to INEC to cancel the election and review the process. Expectedly, if INEC does not comply with this, they are also going to go to court. All of them always feel that they have enough material on hand to challenge the outcome of the election. Where they feel that INEC had not followed its procedures, its guidelines. There were allegations in Imo, for instance, that there are local government where election did not take place, but results were declared there. So these kind of places, they had this in Imo also. I'm still going back to Imo because Imo had a lot of cases. In Imo, for instance, the allegations that as of 10 o'clock in the morning, where election has not even taken place, results have started being uploaded on IRF. Similar to what, yes, an allegation, that's what I'm saying, is the opposition party that made those allegations. Similar to what happened in Kogi, where before the election, where people were still on the queue, result sheet came up and already few result sheet. These are the ones that were seen. Party agents might say they have access to others that were not seen, they were not publicized. So all of them, definitely, I expect there to be a highly contested tribunal sitting when the tribunal opens up for all these 30 states.
All right. Yes. Faith, last month, I think early last month, there was this report from INEC that most of the litigations instituted in which it was co-opted as an interested party were not in favor of the litigants, meaning that INEC has done its own part of the bargain. Political parties, politicians, they are all the problems to themselves. Now, how can INEC exonerate itself this time around? Do you foresee it also maybe winning of sorts in the event that some of these contenders go to court?
Already put in place what INEC and their responsibility should be. For instance, when you talk about the issue of results, it is a right of the party agent to have a copy of the results from the polling unit, irrespective of the fact of whether they signed it or they did not sign it. So party agents ought to have a copy of the result from polling units. A situation whereby they were not able to get the results of the polling unit, this is they have to now put in a report. So they should have evidence to show that this is what has happened, and then be able to make a very valid case. And in the areas where they have a very valid case, INEC would definitely, it's not above the law, would definitely have to face the law. For instance, we have seen cases where INEC in the past had prosecuted their own staff. There are some cases that are still going on with the general elections that we saw. And if there's any INEC staff that is found wanting in any of those processes, definitely I think that they should be called to answer. And this is where really the advocacy for the establishment of the Electoral Offences Commission should come in. So if you have an Electoral Offences Commission and it's established that an INEC staff has contravened the law, it is the Electoral Offences Commission that will take up that responsibility of prosecuting such a person. But again, most of the cases that you see come up, especially general election cases, over 70% of those cases were more of pre-election matters, pointing again to the fact that we have little or no internal democracy within political parties. So you have members of a political party going to court and, calling the courts on all of these issues. And so then on the process itself on election day, these are the things that we're saying. Parties must have credible party agents, because at the end of the day, what it boils down to is that because you don't have credible party agents, especially at the polling units, I must give it to political parties. When it comes to collation, you will see political parties bringing senior party members, people who really ascribe to the ideals of their political party at the collation. But at the polling unit where election is lost or won, you really don't have committed party members who will follow through the process, and that is where the problem usually comes from.
Okay, Fred, still I'm with you. On the day of the election, former President Goodluck Jonathan said he wasn't comfortable with off-cycle elections. Who will solve this problem, in your estimation?
It is the National Assembly, the laws that we have that will have to solve it. Because truly, if you look at the amount of money that we spend conducting off-cycle election, why do we really conduct off-cycle election? Because most of these off-cycle elections are court-determined elections. Then it is a court that says, oh, this person didn't win, go back and conduct this election. You have truncated the tenure of so person. And so by the time you conduct that election, you will see that it's no longer within the circle for the general election. Meanwhile, you have forgotten that there were people who were also part of that election. What stops us from having a law that says if A, B, C, or A didn't meet up the condition and he or she was declared a winner, why don't you go back and look at the second person, just like what happened 4 years ago in Bayelsa? Do you know that if that judgment didn't come on the eve of the inauguration of the governor of the APC candidate that was declared winner of that election, if he had stayed there for 1 week or stayed there for 2 weeks, there would have been another date for the conduct of Bayelsa election. But immediately the second person with the highest vote was sworn in as the governor of the state. Why don't we have things like that? You have unnecessary elections that are coming. You have people who may perhaps die, and then INEC is asked to go and conduct another election. We are spending money. I agree with what former President Jonathan said. We need to have the National Assembly. We need to have stakeholders sit down again and rethink this process so that we don't go wasting money, unnecessarily, because we are conducting elections unending for the country.
All right, thank you. Clement, what is your take on the off-season elections?
I also agree totally with former President Goodluck Jonathan, and I agree with my sister Faith. There is absolutely no need for most of the off-season election, and the solution is simple. there needs to be electoral reform to ensure that before the swearing in of a candidate, all the process of litigation has been concluded. If that is inserted into our Electoral Act, then all we need to do, all the National Assembly needs to do, is to find a way to harmonize all the elections that are already staggered.
Staggered, yes.
Once that is done, we start finding, even when I'm not saying that there will never be a case where we'll be having by-elections. There are unforeseen situations like death. There are resignations that can come up. Those are minor elections. You see a lot of times, there are a lot of by-elections that even happen in this country that we don't know, because they are not as much attention are not given to them like the way we give to off-season elections. So I agree with former President Goodluck Jonathan, and I think all well-meaning Nigerians should pressure the National Assembly to ensure that this review of the electoral that will be carried out, this is inserted in it. We need to go beyond even presently now, a lot of people are celebrating what we have now, that Supreme Court was able to determine the 2023 presidential election just about 3 months or 4 months after this thing. But still, that is not enough. For instance, if the Supreme Court had set aside the election and said it was former Vice President Atiku Abubakar or Peter Obi that emerged winner, the time frame has already been adjusted, because they will insist that they have to complete their term according to the Constitution. So we still need to the electoral reform needs to go beyond the 60 days that is already provided now that case must be filed. It should go to the point that before swearing in, this process, most of these petitions can be done and finished within 1 week.
Yes.
In 1 week, they can be dismissed. Because eventually what they do, at the Court of Appeal, what they do is that they hear your case one day and adjourn for judgment, reserve judgment. So if you hear this, the same week, you can give the judgment. If the person has to go to Supreme Court, the next week, he goes to Supreme Court and file his process. Within 1 month, I believe, if we are serious as a country, if we are serious and want to take things further, we want to reduce the cost of conducting elections, we want to reduce the loss of lives that we keep incurring, because let's not forget something with off-season election. Like I said, the last time I was on your show, a lot of people... This should be
your final comment?
Yeah, my final comment. Because of it's an off-season election, resources are concentrated on these few places, and it becomes more contentious. It becomes more, the atmosphere becomes more tense. So if we are able to review this electoral process, we are not only solving the problem of resources, we are also solving the problem of loss of lives and the tensions that we have on ground. So I believe people should impress on the National Assembly to ensure that this is inserted in the next review of the Electoral Act. All right, Faith, let me have your final take on what INEC, security operatives, politicians, political parties should do ahead of the next round of off-season election, most likely Ondo, yeah, and Edo State. And Edo State, yes.
Edo is next, then Ondo.
And this should be in 1 minute or less.
Okay, thank you very much. I think what we should really sit down to do is look at lessons that we have learned, what went well, what did it go well, so that we can improve on that, especially all the stakeholders. And in also reviewing the electoral acts and the guidelines, the security agents are concerned that on election day, they are tied to the apron string of INEC presiding officer to tell them when an electoral offense is being committed. So perhaps we could also look at all of those. And then most importantly, the most important people within the circle of the value or the electoral value chain are the people. We need to remobilize the people. We need to reorientate the people and let them understand the power in their hands with the PVC that they hold to determine who rules or who doesn't rule.
All right, Faith Nwadishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, for your informed perspective. We thank you for joining us via Zoom.
Thank you very much for having
me.
Clement,
thank you very much for your informed perspective. We have to have you some other time.
Thank you very much for having me.
And viewers, that's a wrap on today's package. We sincerely hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics Live, airing every weekday, and also our special package on Friday, during which we open our telephone line for you to comment on national issues. Once again, we thank you for watching. I'm Hamza Idris.